Happy Hump Day, sports fans, and welcome back to FNN Sports Take with me, Kasey Hudson. I am stoked to chat it up with you guys today because we actually have some really good updates. We know that the conversations have kind of revolved around particular subjects, and we can only beat it down so much, but at least now we have more things to look forward to and more number conversation, which is obviously what I nerd out about. So let's dive into it, obviously, with the NFL first. Now, of course, ever since Cam Newton, the Patriots, the conversation has to happen on who's better. Is it Cam? Is it Tom? And everybody has to go down these rabbit holes of how and why. Look, guys, long story short, Tom Brady is about to be 43 years old entering the 2020 season, and Cam Newton is coming off of his possible third or fourth injury. We have not had an opportunity to even evaluate where Cam Newton is right now in his career. We know that he is an athletic beast sitting at 6'5", 245 pounds. He has the stature of a tight end playing quarterback, and he moves those legs. That's amazing. But after you overcome so many injuries, are you really still going to be that good? Is your skill set still going to be as sharp? Mind you, the unique aspect to this whole situation is that not only was his season cut short for 2019 due to a foot injury, but the offseason that's so important to really sharpening that skill set, getting your body conditioned, getting yourself season ready has been completely different because of COVID-19. Players have not been able to work out to the typical standards that they work out to. They haven't been able to build that chemistry and relationships with their other players. So to be in such a unique situation, coming off of so many injuries, we can't just hand it to Cam and say because he's with the Patriots that it's all of a sudden going to take off. Now, Bill Belichick is an amazing coach. We know that. He's going down in history, Hall of Fame. No doubt about that. In the same sense, you have to think of this as well. Chemistry. I mentioned that word a lot because we know Cam Newton has a chip on his shoulder. We know that he's not the kind of guy to particularly be told how to play, but we know Bill Belichick is the kind of guy who has a system and you're going to play by his system. So if we were to have a real candid conversation here, what's the chemistry and the dynamic going to be like between a Cam Newton and a Bill Belichick if one of them aren't willing to kind of bend a little bit so that they can get some work done out there? For some reason, I just have an inkling of a feeling that it's not going to go off too sharply right out the gate, but who am I? We will find out. Now, of course, you also got to consider the divisions that these two teams are in. Patriots, AFC South, Bucks, AFC East, Bucks, NFC South. Sorry, I say the divisions so much pertaining to the South. Now, NFC South is considered one of the toughest divisions now because all of the teams involved in the NFC South have an equivalent strength on the offensive side of the ball as well as the defensive side of the ball, which makes you a force to be reckoned with. You know, a lot of people are more concerned about where the Saints are going to stand and the fact that we have a healthy Drew Brees playing now because we know that his season kind of got not cut short, but he got injured, he came back around week 11. So there's a lot of things to consider here in terms of who's going to have the better performance between Cam Newton and Tom Brady. Now, former Panthers head coach Ron Rivera came out saying that he advises teams as well as other players not to bet against Cam Newton. Of course, we know that they had a pretty solid relationship. He was willing to put the team on the line and put it on Cam Newton's back, and we did see some really amazing things out of Cam Newton when he's with the Panthers. I mean, he fought through a lot of big injuries, but still, you've got time, you've got age, you've got COVID-19 now that work against you. So there's a whole bunch of elements that are in play here that aren't particularly in play any other time. You guys know me, I'm a numbers girl, and I want to expand this subject just a little further. So rather than just having the Cam Newton, Tom Brady debate, let's take it to the top quarterback names that come up when we're talking about excellence on that field and unique skill sets or people who we expect to take their team to playoffs. Now, when we start breaking down this conversation, of course, we've got Tom Brady with the Buccaneers and a new set of weapons, and we know what Tom Brady can do with weapons. Unbiasedly, guys, let's be serious. Between Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, now he has two running backs who he can split out as well and throw in the slot. He has a lot of versatility on that offense. Having those opportunities is going to make Tom Brady that much better because we haven't seen a weakness in his arm strength just yet. And as long as that line can protect him, we know what he is capable of doing. Next in the conversation, obviously after the big signing, Cam Newton. Again, he's a freak of nature. He's a tight end hanging out in the pocket playing quarterback. It's just weird. But aside from his season being cut short due to injuries, we've seen him have some particularly strong stats. Then we have Lamar Jackson, who people just called him a wide receiver. They didn't expect him to have any kind of success at the QB position in the NFL, and he just came out here and shut up a lot of people. That was huge. Then we have Patrick Mahomes, who, okay, Super Bowl champion. I think that's enough to be said. and Aaron Rodgers. You can never have a QB conversation without Aaron Rodgers in the mix. Let's be serious. And then amongst all of this, you have to add Drew Brees to top it off. Now, when we break down these guys, we want to know your opinion. Who is going to be your star quarterback of the 2020 season? And you, to put some things in perspective, it's going to come down to the weapons that these guys have at their disposal. So last year, we're going to break down some of those 2019 stats that each of these QBs had. Tom Brady threw for 4,057 yards, 24 TDs, and 8 interceptions, whereas Cam Newton, before the foot injury, unfortunately, threw for only 572 yards, 0 touchdowns, and 1 interception. Then we've got Lamar Jackson, the wide receiver of the NFL, who threw for 3,127 yards, 36 TDs, 6 interceptions. Patrick Mahomes, our Super Bowl QB, threw for 4,031 yards, 26 touchdowns, and only 5 interceptions. Then we have Aaron Rodgers, 4,002 yards, 26 TDs, 4 interceptions, and then Drew Brees, who started off the season with the team, had that thumb injury / surgery, came back around week 11, 9, 10, or 11, threw for 2,979 yards, 27 TDs, and 4 interceptions. Guys, when you break down these statistics and you think about the weapons that these guys either just inherited or will have another year with a building chemistry and relationship with under their belt, we're talking about freaks when it comes to the 2020 season. But we want to know, who is your 2020 QB, and which division is stronger? Is it the AFC East or is it the NFC South? Let us know in the comments as well as our DMs, because we will break that down further on Friday. Stick with us as we go to a quick commercial break, guys, and then we break down some NBA.
At Duke Energy, we deliver electricity and so much more, like free home energy assessments, rebates for energy-saving improvements, payment options to help you better manage your budget, and even bill credits for helping the community use less energy. So no matter what you're doing, we can help you make better energy choices every day. It's just another way we bring power to your life. How much can you save?
All right, guys, welcome back. So Commissioner Adam Silver obviously had to release a statement as we started to get closer to the NBA bubble, but all of the COVID-19 spike cases is obviously raising a lot of concern. Now, the only statement that he really released, or partial concern, quote unquote, is that they're going to see how it goes. He also wanted to make a statement to say that we're going to have to learn how to live through this pandemic. Now, he got some backlash on that remark, because it's one thing to live through a pandemic. It's another thing to put yourself at risk during a pandemic and play. So these sports, obviously, between the contact that these boys have to have, you're putting yourself at a higher risk to contract the virus. People were really dumbfounded to the fact that he said that you have to learn to live through it, where I agree to an extent. I mean, when we start talking antibodies and building up your immune system, but somebody made a very valid point to say, you don't realize how many of these athletes are actually running around with athletic asthma. So you already have an underlying respiratory situation, and then you're putting yourself at higher risk to play during a pandemic. So realistically, no, not everyone has to learn to live through this, because they have to take those safety precautions for themselves and for their underlying issues. And the worst thing about this, no, it's not asymptomatic, as I love to go on and on and on about, but the worst part about this is people who don't know or really recognize that they have an underlying issue because their respiratory system isn't screaming at them that there's something wrong or there's a reason for them to need to get checked out. So that could be unfortunate to have players on the court and to learn that lesson the hard way. Now, there is a high risk here, obviously, in completing the season, and some NBA staff members are struggling with the idea of heading to this bubble now with all of the spike cases taking place throughout Florida. The cherry on top of all of this is that 3 Pelican players have now tested positive for COVID-19 before even heading to travel and get over to Orlando, Florida. More players are actually starting to opt out even past the June 24th deadline. So it's not the best look. It's not giving anybody more security as we start hearing more and more things, or more people showing that they're not feeling too confident in this situation. But as he said, they're just going to see how it goes as they proceed to move forward. Now, we had the pleasure of hopping on a press conference call earlier with Orlando Magic's Nikolai Vucevic. That's such a fun name to say. Vooch. And people wanted to know his thoughts on the bubble, of course. That had to be the first question we asked after all the news that's been coming out. So Vucevic made a good point. He said, honestly, he trusts the NBA. They're one of the best organizations out there professional-wise, and he trusts them to try to do everything they possibly can. He acknowledges the fact that, yes, it's difficult. Like, you're not going to really check off all boxes. This is something that we're all learning about on a day-to-day basis as we go. And the best thing we can do is listen to medical experts, take their advice, and find the best procedures to put in place, so that everyone can feel more security and more confidence moving through this. But more than anything, he says that he's confident that they are trying everything that they can to keep the guys as safe as possible. And the bubble is realistically the best idea possible, to have everybody right there amongst each other in a manageable state, in a manageable area, and just kind of see where things go. So he wasn't too concerned or unconfident about the bubble. He was also asked, you play for the Orlando Magic. You guys are about to be playing at ESPN Worldwide Sports. What's the feeling going to be like to be so close to home, but like not be able to be with your family, with your wife, with your kid? And he said that kind of makes it the hardest. You're not traveling across the country. It's not feeling like those away games during a season. Like, you're right there and you can't have them with you. But luckily his parents came up to help out his wife, so that gives him a bit of a more comfortable feeling with just getting through it. And he said realistically, once the tournament gets going, once you're in the competitive headspace, you're not going to be so worried. You're going to be more focused on getting these games behind you. You're going to have more tunnel vision to complete this tournament and just keep moving forward, and you won't be sitting around agonizing or thinking too much about everything else going on outside of the bubble. Now, something really cool is this Aura ring that can detect COVID-19 3 days out from you being diagnosed with it. That's been something that's been kicked around in terms of athletes wearing it so that they can try to get ahead of the curve with anyone who might have it or come in contact of it. The Aura ring lights up. He said that he's all on board for wearing an Aura ring. He thinks that that's a great way to try to get ahead of and put preventative measures in place, but he can't really find one that'll fit his pinky finger. These guys, I can't imagine that they didn't come out the gate with the right ring sizes. All these guys just have monstrous hands and stuff, but he's on board to wear it. He just wants to get ahead of the curve in managing the COVID-19 situation. Then we had an opportunity to ask him, does he feel like the restart of the 2020 NBA season will be a distraction from everything taking place in our nation as well as our world? And he says, absolutely not. We have a platform here as athletes, and we can really use that to continue pushing the positive message across the board. And he said, more importantly, us coming together, finishing this season, using this platform to have this discussion, we're showing unity, we're showing that we're coming together, and more we are stronger together. I totally agree with everything Vucevic had to say today. It was great catching up with him on that press conference call. Now for some NHL conversation. 2 hub cities are more than likely narrowed down to Edmonton and Toronto after Las Vegas has been ruled out due to their increase of COVID-19 cases. Now, a couple weeks ago, we discussed the fact that there was only a certain amount of players that tested positive outside of a certain amount of number of players tested. To be more precise, guys who stayed in their team cities and showed up to the facilities to do those 6-man workouts, those were the ones who were tested. So only 250 NHL players have been tested. 15 have tested positive out of that 250. Again, the numbers are staying quite low in terms of who's coming out positive, but it's still scary to think that we've barely kind of scratched the surface on everyone who needs to be tested to have that security that it's not going to be spread as rapidly. So we'll see what happens there, because we know the NHL is not doing quarantine when they get to these hub cities. They feel like the guys are doing enough of that in their practice facilities. We haven't heard much feedback in terms of what has happened, or, if there's been any negative backlash or spiking cases with the guys ramping up from 6 players on the ice to 12 players on the ice. But we know temperatures are being taken. They're vetting the players at the door before they enter the facilities, so on and so forth. Now, today's been a big day for NHL players, because today was the day they were due their signing bonuses as scheduled. According to ESPN, there was more than $300 million due to be paid to players on today. Toronto Maple Leafs leading the league with roughly $60 million owed to NHL players on their team. Contracts structured larger signing bonuses and have been in vogue with NHL for the past several years. So congratulations to the guys that got those bonuses today. Now, as of yesterday, the agreement to pay the players and not defer the payment was concluded between the NHL and the NHLPA. For further information on the NHL, the Red Wings are actually planning to hold their 2020 and 2021 training camp in Detroit. They say that there's no point in doing the Hub City thing. They feel like it's more manageable to be in their own facilities where, they know where everything's at. They know where everyone's coming in. They can just manage the situation way more if they just keep it to their facility in Detroit. So I don't really disagree with that. Honestly, the traveling part kind of freaks me out a little bit because you just don't know. So, the masks are clearly helpful, but you just don't know. Stick with us as we go to another quick commercial break, and then we come back and have some real MLB conversation to have.
At Taco John's, you can expect one thing, so good, as in quality ingredients used in tacos and burritos made just for you. Every single bite.
So good.
Expect nothing less at Taco John's.
All right, guys, welcome back. So the minor league, which is not MLB news, but minor league baseball season has been canceled. We kind of saw that coming. Obviously, they had to take major pay cuts, and then we had MLB players step forward and start, adding to their salaries so that they weren't taking a huge L. But yeah, minor league baseball season is canceled. For guys opting out of the 2020 season, we named a few people on Monday, but to add to that list, Rockies' Ian Desmond is actually opting out of the 2020 season, and his GM entirely backs him and his decision to do so. He said that he needs to focus on his young family and help rejuvenate youth baseball in his hometown of Florida, which is fantastic. Now, this is going to be a significant loss for the Rockies, seeing as how Desmond, who hit for .255 with 20 homers and 140 games last season, he is actually due a little over $5 million for the prorated share of his $15 million salary, part of a $70 million 5-year contract, and he's owed $8 million next year. So we'll see what happens with this, because we were hearing, I know NBA was saying if you don't play, you don't get paid. MLB, they were having a lot of negotiation issues in terms of prorated salary, how many games, so on and so forth. So we'll see what happens with Desmond here. But, these guys that have younger kids and, newborn babies and stuff, they can't take that risk even if they wanted to play with all their heart. And in the same sense, I don't feel like they should be penalized pay-wise, but organizations here are really struggling with revenues, because more than likely fans are not going to participate. They're going to participate late or at only 25% capacity. So there's a loss there either way. Now, in spring training, MLB is looking to test every other day unless a player has a temperature over 100.4 degrees. Teams can play up to 3 exhibition games. And for on-the-field rules, there will be no spitting, no chewing tobacco, guys. And pitchers will actually carry wet rags so that they're not tempted to lick their fingers, because, that's just gross. In extra innings, each team will begin with a runner on second base, and opening day rosters will feature 30 active players that will be trimmed down to 28 on the 15th day, and the new trade deadline is August 31st. So that's some updates for the MLB. 40 games played within division, 20 interleague games. MLS is the next professional sport that's heading into that bubble. They have already got that going, because we're just 8 days away from that tourney kicking off. Everybody's super excited about this. I know that I've said 100,000 times I cannot wait to see International Miami and Orlando City go at it. But the good news here is that players who have already checked into the bubble feel safe and optimistic about it. They say that the way that everything is set up is actually a lot more than they imagined it would be. Rules-wise, if any player ends up leaving the bubble, which they have to get written permission to do so, if they end up leaving the bubble, they obviously will have enhanced testing once they get back. They will be quarantined for 10 days just for extra safety precautions. Most players said that they're not thinking to leave the bubble, but you never know. And then obviously if there's a medical emergency, they have to go. So they will be quarantined, they will be tested, and then they will move forward in their tournament. Once they are cleared, the extended quarantine period will not be necessary. They will be tested every other day as well prior to match day. So the breakdown of how this tournament's kind of going to look is that practices and games will take place at ESPN Worldwide Sports Complex. Each team will be allowed 90-minute sessions at 8 a.m., 10:30 a.m., 7 p.m., 9:30 p.m. Games will be scheduled for 9 a.m., 8 p.m., or 10:30/11 p.m. every day throughout the tournament, so that they can wrap this puppy up on August 11th. A lot of information, but finally just a lot of good updates, a lot of good statistics. Don't forget, we want to know your breakdown of all the QBs that we named earlier, your feedback in terms of whether the NBA should just move forward feeling confident and just, living through the pandemic, and other MLB players. Do you guys think more guys are going to opt out that are bigger names. We know that Zimmerman was a big name to be dropped. I gave you the breakdown as for why the Rockies losing Desmond will probably hurt a bit. And then MLS, 8 days away from finally having that tournament. But so far, all positive feedback. These guys are just ready to get back to work. So that is a wrap for me tonight. You guys can catch me Friday at 8 p.m. And per usual, stay safe, stay sane, stay kind, stay compassionate, and wear your mask. It's not that hard. The worst thing is your face might break out a little bit, but it's fine. Get face wash and wear your mask, because it's not just about you. It's about everybody. It's about this nation. It's about this world. Stay safe, guys. See you Friday at 8.